Family shattered when I saw my wife kissing another man at the club. I thought she was simply out having fun with friends. Until I saw her wrapped in his arms, kissing him like I never existed, wedding ring still on her hand. In that moment, I knew our marriage was over. Welcome to Storytime Reddit, everyone. My wife and I have been married for 4 years. She's the outgoing, social butterfly type, especially obsessed with partying and those all-girls night outs with her besties. Me? I'm the exact opposite. I work in tech, love peace and quiet, and usually spend my evenings gaming or watching something low-key at home. We used to say our differences were what made us the perfect balance, but now, I wonder if I've just been turning a blind eye, clinging to someone who was never truly mine to begin with. That night, I was lying in bed, about to sleep, when my phone buzzed. One of our mutual friends had sent me a short clip from the club my wife was at. Normally, I wouldn't care. I mean, I've always known that once or twice a month she'd have her girls' night, just her and her squad out having fun. But this time, something felt off. In the video, my wife was sitting way too close to some random guy in a dark corner. They were laughing, whispering, leaning into each other, and then they kissed. Not an accidental peck. Not a misunderstood angle. A full, real, passionate kiss. I felt like someone had just grabbed my chest and crushed it. My heart was pounding. I texted her right away, asked if she wanted me to come pick her up, used the excuse that she said earlier she wasn't feeling great. No response. I sent a few more texts. Nothing. But I could see she was still active on social media, still posting to her story. That was the moment something snapped in me. I couldn't just sit there. I threw on a jacket, got in my car, and drove straight to the club. During the drive, my mind was spiraling. Was I overreacting? Was I turning into the jealous, controlling husband? Or was this really happening? We had been happy, hadn't we? We had promised to always be honest, no matter what. I walked into the club, swallowed by the crowd, flashing lights and pounding music. It only took a few seconds to find her. And it only took a few more for every illusion I had about my marriage to come crashing down. There she was, sitting in the back of the club, still practically tangled up with the same guy. Their lips hadn't even fully separated yet. One of her friends noticed me, froze, and then rushed over to whisper something in her ear. My wife jumped, pushed the guy away, said something to him, and he disappeared into the crowd. I stood there, staring. She walked toward me, saying all the classic lines you hear in trashy soap operas. It's not what it looks like. You're misunderstanding. This isn't what you think. But I wasn't crazy. I saw it. All of it. When I asked her, who was that guy? She had the audacity to stutter. What guy? There was no one, like I hadn't just watched her lock lips with him a few minutes ago. We started arguing, voices raised, and then security came over and escorted me out, like I was the one causing a scene. I didn't resist, I didn't say a word. I just stood there, watching the blurry lights inside the club, knowing that the woman I called my wife was in there, denying everything, denying us. That night, I didn't go home. I just drove. No destination, just pain, betrayal, and silence in the car with me. And in that moment, something inside me died, something that I know will never come back. I still remember that moment, the moment everything inside me collapsed. When my wife tried to justify what I saw by saying I was just imagining things, that I was too sensitive, that there was no other man, that I was the paranoid one ruining our marriage. But how could I believe those words when I had literally just watched her lips on another man's in that dimly lit bar she had always called a girl's night spot? She didn't cry, didn't apologize, didn't panic the way I thought someone caught cheating would. Instead, she stood in front of me stammering a few incoherent excuses before flipping the narrative, accusing me of invading her privacy, embarrassing her in public, and being some sick control freak. I don't even know which emotion hit harder: rage, humiliation, or heartbreak. Maybe all three at once. I stood there in the middle of the loud music and curious stares, looking at the woman I once loved with everything I had, the same woman I wanted to spend my whole life with, now trying to convince me that the truth I just saw with my own eyes wasn't even real. I remember not saying a word, just staring silently at the person I used to call my wife. Then, in that whirlwind of emotion, the club's security came and dragged me outside like I was the one causing a scene. No one defended me. No one offered a single explanation. She didn't even show the slightest hint of regret. That night, I didn't go home. I drove aimlessly through empty streets, my head replaying the same image over and over, the two of them sitting close, hands brushing, eyes locking, that flirtatious smile, and their lips meeting like they had no one in the world to answer to. I crashed at a friend's place for a few days, hoping the silence would help me think. But how do you process something like that when the person you trusted most stabs you in the back without hesitation? Part of me still hoped it was a misunderstanding, that there was some kind of explanation, that she'd eventually come clean, apologize, and maybe, just maybe, we could work through it. But no. The next day, she texted me, not to apologize, not to explain, but to blame me. She accused me of destroying her reputation, said I was making things up to make it easier to leave, and that I had no right showing up and making a scene at the club. Not a single sorry. Not even a flicker of remorse. Just cold words flipping the script. She called me weak, said I never made her feel attractive, that she was sick of my boring lifestyle, and how I never wanted to go out like I used to. But did anyone ask why I was tired? How many nights I stayed late working, cooking, cleaning, handling bills just so she could have her fun with her friends? No one knew, because I never said anything. I thought I was being the understanding, selfless husband, but in her eyes, I was just a dull shadow in her background. And when someone more interesting came along, she didn't hesitate to shove me aside, even tried to erase me entirely by painting me as some delusional guy losing his grip. The moment I walked out of that club, I knew my marriage was over. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I realized the woman I once trusted with everything, she didn't exist anymore. A few days after the betrayal, I decided to return to the house that used to be our shared home to pack up the rest of my belongings. I didn't want to see her, but I needed to collect what was mine, including my toolbox and a few personal items from the shed I had built and customized with my own hands. When I walked into the house, there was an eerie silence. But what I didn't expect was to find my mother-in-law there too. She was standing at the kitchen counter and froze when she saw me. Maybe she thought I had come to make amends, but I quickly crushed that hope with one sentence. "I'm here to get my stuff. She cheated on me." Her face went pale. She slowly set her glass down and stared at me like she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. I didn't want to make a scene, but I wasn't going to stay silent either. I told her what I had seen with my own eyes, the absurd excuses I was given, and how her daughter twisted the story to paint me as the crazy one. Right then, my wife walked in. She didn't look shocked to see me. She looked shocked I had told her mom. Immediately, she went on the defensive, throwing out denial after denial and calling me a liar. "He's obsessed, Mom. Don't listen to him. There wasn't any guy, you believe me, right?" she said, practically begging for her mom's support. But for the first time since I met her, my mother-in-law didn't take her side. She turned to me and asked, "Is it true? Did she really cheat on you?" I nodded. I didn't need to say anything else. The look in her eyes shifted, disappointment and anger took over. She turned back to her daughter and demanded an explanation. She asked how she could possibly treat the man who'd been so loved and trusted by their entire family like that. I stood silently, packing my things while the argument between the two of them escalated. My wife began to lose control, yelling that I was trying to destroy her life, that I was making things up to leave her, but her mother had had enough. She reminded her about how I'd once asked for her hand in marriage, the hopes we all had for our future, and then came the shocker even for me. "From this moment on," she said, "I'm not helping you with your master's program. You're on your own with this apartment too. I'm not sending you another dime. You destroyed your own future." I clenched my jaw but didn't say a word. I just kept loading my things into boxes. When I wheeled my suitcase to the door, they were still arguing. But I didn't want to hear any more. The only thing I felt at that moment was closure. Not anger, not sadness, not regret. Just a strange sense of calm that comes when you finally see everything clearly and realize you weren't the one in the wrong. My buddy was waiting outside in the car. As I stepped out, he helped me load my stuff into the trunk and gave me a quick pat on the shoulder. "Let's go. From now on, you live for you." And for the first time in weeks, I felt a weird kind of peace settle in my chest. Right after I left the apartment that used to be our home, I knew I had to cut every financial tie with her as fast as possible. We had a joint bank account set up when we got married, mostly for convenience. But now, there was no reason to share anything anymore. I pulled every dollar I had contributed, moved it all into my personal savings, and left nothing behind. I called the car insurance company directly and canceled the policy that was under my name for the car she was still driving. I had already paid for the month, but I wasn't going to let a single cent more go towards someone who betrayed me. Then I dug through my email and pulled up a couple of expensive concert tickets she had begged me to buy, even though I never cared to go. I listed them online. A few sold right away, the rest I left posted. The one thing that bothered me more than anything else was the phone plan. We were on a shared mobile plan, and of course, She had added her number but never paid a dime. I called the provider and asked them to remove her line. Because of the billing cycle, I had to wait a few more weeks before she was officially off the plan, but I was done waiting around. Every move I made from that point forward was to erase her existence from my life. But just a few days later, she caught on. A call came in while I was about to grab lunch with my best friend. Her name lit up on the screen. I stared at it for a moment, then answered, not because I had any feelings left, but because I wanted to hear what a cheater says when they realize the consequences are finally catching up. She screamed into the phone, accusing me of being selfish, said she couldn't afford rent, and that I had made her homeless. I asked her, who betrayed this marriage? Who kissed another man behind their husband's back? Who threw away everything we built? She didn't answer. A few hours later, she messaged me on Facebook with a completely different tone. She apologized, said it was a mistake, blamed it on alcohol, and claimed she still loved me. But the moment I opened Instagram, there she was posting photos with the same guy from the club, arms wrapped around each other, with a passive-aggressive caption and a story that read, "True love always finds its way back." I laughed, no reply. That night, she moved to Snapchat. No more apologies, just blame. Said I was heartless, said I drained the account and canceled her car insurance. Said she'd been an offender bender and had to pay out of pocket. I didn't respond. I blocked her on everything. Then the friend who had been with her at the club sent me a message, accusing me of being cruel, saying I abandoned her when she needed support. I blocked her too. I don't care what people say anymore. I'm no longer the nice husband who stayed quiet just to keep the peace. Now I'm a man who was betrayed, but also a man learning to love himself again, learning that cutting ties is sometimes the only way to live with dignity. And honestly, that's enough for me. Ever since I emptied our joint account and cut off all financial ties, she lost it. She called every number she could remember, even my old work landline and a backup phone I once used to register a gaming account. When the calls didn't go through, she messaged me everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, even my personal email, the one I had last used to send out our wedding invitations. It started with blame, turned into threats, and eventually became begging. She said she couldn't pay rent, called me heartless for abandoning the woman who once called herself my wife during her lowest point. But what I couldn't wrap my head around was this: while she was whining about being on the verge of homelessness, she was also posting pictures from fancy restaurants, dining with the same guy I caught her kissing. Every time I opened social media, there she was, grinning like nothing happened, checking in at cute cafes, posting aesthetic food shots, with romantic music in the background and captions like, "Peace comes when you let go of your burdens." I wasn't sure if the burden she meant was me or the mask she'd worn for all those years. But one thing was clear: she was still performing, and the only audience she was trying to convince was herself. After I blocked her on every platform, she moved on to messaging my mom. My mother read it, sighed, and forwarded it to me. The message? You guessed it. "I'm sorry for hurting your son, but I'm going through a lot. Please talk to him for me." My mom didn't reply. Neither did I. I had no more feelings left for this person. But it didn't stop there. A week later, my best friend sent me a screenshot from her latest story. It was a full-blown smear campaign. She claimed I was controlling, emotionally abusive, that I manipulated the truth and turned her own family against her. She even wrote that I faked the cheating story just to escape the marriage and keep the assets. The comments were full of strangers defending her. "Women should stand up. Everyone makes mistakes. Don't let toxic men guilt you." I didn't blame them. They didn't know the real story. But I couldn't stay silent forever, so I posted one single status. No tags, no names, no shade, just this: the truth doesn't need decoration. Lies, no matter how golden, will always show their rust in the light. I wasn't seeking validation or trying to prove anything. I just needed peace in my own heart. The next day, an old college friend, someone who knew both of us, messaged me privately. She simply wrote, "I know you weren't in the wrong. We all do." And that hit deeper than any essay-length defense ever could. That's when I realized you don't need to argue with people. The ones who understand won't need an explanation. The ones blinded by emotion or fantasy won't believe you anyway. I walked away from that marriage shattered. But piece by piece, I'm rebuilding myself. As for her, the woman I once loved with everything I had, she chose her path, and I've chosen mine, quietly moving forward without ever looking back. I thought everything would finally stop once her own family cut her off and the truth about her was exposed online. But no, it was only the beginning. A close friend who still kept in touch with her parents messaged me and said they had officially disowned her. They stopped all financial support, including her grad school tuition and the rent for the apartment we used to share. Her mom told me directly that after everything that happened, they couldn't continue enabling her irresponsibility and lies anymore. And honestly, it made me feel oddly relieved and maybe a little amused. These were the same people who once treated me like a son. Now, they felt just as betrayed by her as I did. Apparently, after being cut off, she had nowhere else to go and was temporarily crashing at her best friend's place, the same one she went clubbing with the night I caught her. But the apartment was tiny, just one bedroom, and the friend lived there with her boyfriend. So basically, she had no privacy, sleeping on the couch in a cramped living room, stuck in the exact kind of chaotic freedom she always claimed to love. One afternoon, my parents came to visit after months of not seeing me. They brought food, a few old decorations for my new apartment, and something even more important, the warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. During my marriage, I barely shared anything with them. I didn't want them to worry. I thought being a man meant I had to carry everything on my own, even loneliness, even the quiet pain I never dared to speak out loud. But this time, sitting in my new kitchen still faintly smelling of paint, I told them everything. From the night I found out, to her denial, to the way she spun the story and made herself the victim to gain sympathy, my mom didn't cry. She just held my hand tightly and said something I'll never forget. You did the right thing. Don't ever feel guilty for choosing to protect yourself. And that's when it hit me. What hurts most isn't always what someone else does to you. Sometimes, it's how long you kept quiet. How much you gave up. How far you lost yourself just to keep something together. I had loved someone so much that I forgot who I was. And when that person betrayed me, I didn't even recognize myself anymore. But now, everything is different. I live in a small, clean, quiet apartment. There are no more late-night arguments. No more fake stories I have to pretend to like. No more staring at bills wondering where the money went. I've started taking care of myself, eating better, going to the gym with my best friend, and I even signed up for an online UX design course. Something I always dreamed of doing, but she used to say was a waste of time. One day, my ex-mother-in-law texted me. She said her daughter was unemployed, had no one left to help her, and might be sleeping in her car. I didn't respond. Not because I'm heartless, but because I'm no longer someone's lifeline after they tried to drown me. I was once in despair too, but I learned to swim. And if she has any conscience left, maybe she should learn to swim too, just like I did. I didn't think I'd ever have to hear her voice again, until one afternoon after a therapy session, I saw a missed call from an unknown number. I assumed it was the therapist's office calling back, so I picked up. But the moment I heard the voice on the other end, I knew exactly who it was. It was Hearthwoman I had tried so hard to erase from every corner of my life and mind. She started with a dramatic sigh and that same fragile tone I'd learned to see through. She said she had done a lot of thinking, that she realized her mistakes, and she just wanted one chance to explain. I stayed silent, waiting to see which version of the lie she'd go with this time, and of course, she rewrote the whole story. She claimed the guy was the one who forced himself on her, that the first time was accidental, and the rest happened because she was scared. She said she didn't want to cheat on me, but was overwhelmed. Then she blamed me, said I had changed, that I wasn't romantic anymore, that I had neglected her for work and even video games. I clenched my jaw, doing my best to stay calm. She said I no longer made her feel beautiful, that I had stopped caring about how I looked, that walking beside me embarrassed her because I was too plain while she was always the one who turned heads. She said she once dreamed of having a husband who was attractive, successful, someone who knew how to enjoy life. And I, just some scruffy IT guy in an old t-shirt who came home to eat instant noodles and play games, was not the man she'd imagined herself with. That sentence cut deeper than the moment I saw her kissing another man at the club. Not because I still loved her, but because I had believed I was doing enough. I thought staying late at work for our future, letting her shine while I stepped back, was something admirable. But to her, I was just some loser, a shameful ex. I hung up without saying a word. Later, I told her parents, just to inform them she had reached out and was still playing the victim. They gave me a sad laugh and said she'd shown up at their place a few days ago with bags in hand and puffy eyes, begging to be let in. They didn't let her inside. Her mom said if she came back again, they'd call the cops. They said she looked lost, smelled of sweat, hair a mess, her car stuffed with belongings. It's likely she's living in it now, wandering around, finally facing the consequences of her betrayal and selfishness. They told me not to feel guilty, and I don't, but I do feel sad. Not for her suffering, but for the woman I once wanted to marry, the one I once thought was my future who managed to fall so far, so fast. Not because of one mistake, but because she dug her own grave and kept digging. And as for me, I made it out just in time. A few months after everything went down, I slowly started to settle into my new apartment and finally began to feel the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. I focused more on work, picked up a few extra freelance projects to boost my income, and started spending time on myself again, something I had forgotten how to do ever since I stepped into that pressure-filled marriage. Every now and then, my ex-wife's parents would still check in on me, not to talk about her, but just to ask how I was doing. They told me I was like a second son to them, and I knew they meant it. That touched me more than I expected, especially since we no longer had any legal or family ties. As for her, she completely disappeared from our shared social circle. The friends we once had in common don't even bring up her name anymore. I heard she got kicked out by her best friend for not contributing to rent or bills, and she's been couch surfing ever since until even that stopped. Word is she vanished completely. Her social media accounts have all been shut down. No more curated stories, no more fake posts about freedom and self-love, just silence. Looking back, I can't believe I once thought I'd spend the rest of my life with someone like her. Someone who could look her husband in the eye and lie through her teeth, even after being caught red-handed. Someone who would twist reality just to avoid taking responsibility for her actions. But then I realized what hurt me the most wasn't the kiss, or the lies, or even the betrayal. It was the fact that I had completely lost myself in that relationship. I had spent so long trying to keep the peace, trying not to hurt anyone, trying to be the understanding husband, that I forgot I deserved protection and love too. So I started reconnecting with who I used to be. I joined a few small meetups in the local tech community, attended some workshops where I didn't have to play the role of the tolerant husband or the heartbroken ex. I went back to the gym not to get revenge with my body, but to reclaim my health and a sense of control over my life. One day, I bumped into an old college friend. She and I were in the same UI design class, used to work on group projects together. I never paid much attention back then because, well, I was married. But now, when we met again, we talked like two grown-ups who'd both been knocked around by life and were just learning to stand up again. No pressure, no promises. Just coffee after work and a few late-night calls when one of us needed someone to talk to. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I don't feel stuck in painful memories anymore. Someone once asked me, if she came back and begged for forgiveness, would you take her back? I just smiled and said, she doesn't exist in my world anymore. I don't hate her. I don't resent her. I just kept walking, and sometimes the bravest thing a person can do isn't to seek revenge or try to forgive. Sometimes it's simply choosing to walk toward the light and leaving the darkness behind.